Nitrogen. Now, it's not in practically all biological molecules the way that carbon, hydrogen, oxygen are, but they're in the proteins, nucleic acids, they're in chlorophyll. So nitrogen is very important to living things. Key component there. Nitrogen, there's loads of it all around. The atmosphere is made up of about 78% nitrogen gas. But N2 is very tightly bonded. It's a triple bond. It's very hard to get that to react with anything. So most of it's just floating around as nitrogen gas, not doing anything. That doesn't help living things that need nitrogen. Now, if you zap it with lightning, okay, yeah, that can cause that to react and make something like, say, ammonia or nitrite or nitrate ions or various nitrogen oxides. Burning, that may lead to that happening as well, making nitrogen oxides. Certain types of bacteria, those nitrogen-fixing bacteria, are able to take nitrogen, react with hydrogen. They've got the enzymes that can do the trick. And since late 1800s, we can do it too. We've worked out the chemistry, and so fertilizer factors where you take a lot of nitrogen from the air and use it to make ammonia or various nitrogen oxides. Once we've got ammonia or nitrites or nitrates, living things can use those to make more complex nitrogen compounds. Or those can be broken down and we make ammonia, or as we saw, the ammonia might be further processed to make urea, uric acid, things like that, as a potential waste product. Certain anaerobic bacteria are able to use the ammonia or nitrites, nitrates, and get energy and make nitrogen gas again as a waste product from that process. We mentioned as an example of symbiosis, the nitrogen-fixing bacteria living with roots. These lumps on the roots are typical of the legumes, the bean family. And the bacteria live inside these lumps, referred to as nodules. Again, bacteria are sharing the nitrogen that they fix, changing it from N2 to, say, ammonia. And the plant provides food as well as a place for the bacteria to live. Both benefiting. So, mutualism. Nitrogen cycle, not quite as complicated as the carbon. For one thing, nitrogen tends to not be very significant in the rocks. So there's not much that is long-term buried away. It gets into soil as nitrates and ammonia and the like, but then bacteria use it. So you have the back and forth there. Again, if we have too much nutrients, say extra fertilizer has washed into someplace, then we often see a few things taking over, like the algae overgrowing in ponds or ocean or whatever like that. As those die and decay, that depletes oxygen, and of course low oxygen is not good for anything that breathes, which covers eukaryotes generally. So you can have other problems there. Also, some of these algal blooms actually produce toxic chemicals affecting other species, including us. Nitrogen, too high a level, can easily be toxic. For example, if in your aquarium, all of a sudden everything goes belly up, good chance the problem was too much ammonia from waste that was not being broken down by bacteria or other living things. A classic health mystery. 7 Blue Men is the name of the story. A hospital had 7 different men brought in having respiratory problems, so low oxygen. They were looking kind of blue, and various other health issues. One of them died. I'm trying to figure out what's going on here. Eventually, it was tracked back that all of them had eaten at the same restaurant, and at that restaurant, accidentally, some nitrite containing salts used for preserving meat had been mixed with regular salt and got into food at high concentration. Similarly, down in the groundwater, if waste or extra fertilizer, things like that, gets down into the ground, we can have the groundwater being too high in nitrogen, and that's going to affect things like the springs and stuff living down the ground, wells, things like that. Phosphorus. Again, it's in nucleic acids, and those of us who are vertebrates use it in our bones. So we need quite a lot of it. Most other organisms don't need quite so much, but still, they got to have DNA, RNA, things like that. So we have phosphorus. Like carbon, it can be extensively in rocks. Unlike carbon, not particularly in gas. So, again, not quite as complicated as the carbon cycle. Rocks that contain phosphorus minerals erode, and the phosphate will be in soil or water. We have noticeable levels of phosphate minerals actually in rocks around here. Not enough to be of interest to directly mine, but there's enough to keep the plants happy. Plants will use these, whether to make their DNA or ADP, RNA, the phospholipids in cell membranes. There's phosphorus there as well. And then plants are getting this through their roots from the soil. Animals, we get it from eating the plants. And then decomposers break things down and release extra phosphate back into the system. Some of this washes on down, goes to the streams, makes it to the ocean, and on the bottom of the ocean can get buried away and end up as phosphate rock. Then, if that former ocean bottom ends up on land, whether from ups and downs of sea level, or through plate tectonics and collisions squishing around, things like that, then there we are, we've got the phosphate back available to erode and go through the system once more. Diagram of those things going on. Like for nitrogen, if we get too much extra fertilizer, then we'll tend to get the algal blooms and similar problems there. North Carolina has a phosphate mine out at Aurora, way out towards the east end of the state. Although the government doesn't officially release statistics for any one mine, they do release statistics state by state. North Carolina has only one phosphate mine, and it's a major phosphate producer. I think I know what mine it's coming from. So, in addition to fertilizer use, phosphates are used in a variety of food products. Baking powder, for example, has phosphate. Some sodas, if you read the ingredient list on your soft drink and it mentions phosphoric acid, good chance that came out of the ground at Aurora. They have the facilities to make it extra clean food grade for use in food products. Water, the hydrologic cycle. We have evaporation, especially from the ocean, because that's an awful lot of water. And then water vapor floats around, can form droplets or ice crystals, make clouds. We get rain or snow, back it comes to the surface. May run across the surface, may soak into the ground as groundwater. Back and forth and around it goes. Water cycles relatively quickly, back and forth. So, okay, we use water, but then it goes on out, and so we're not really using up water, but we do change where water is, and that can potentially cause problems. So, especially in drier areas, if we either are pumping lots of water out of the ground or taking water, say, away from a river and using it someplace else, that can lead to drying up in various areas. For example, the Colorado River these days is reduced to a trickle by the time it gets to Mexico and basically does not make it to the ocean because we're taking so much water out of it in order to water crops and golf courses and decorations for Las Vegas and stuff like that. Groundwater. Pumping lots of water out of the ground. Well, for one thing, your neighbor's wells may grow dry because you've pumped so much out. Eventually yours, if you're pumping water out faster than new water comes in, the whole area can run dry for the wells. Water, if we have less underground, that's holding the dirt up less, and so the ground tends to sink when we take too much water out of the ground. Satellite can measure, is the ground sinking, and tell what areas are having those problems. And a lot of places are, including a good deal of the western U.S., particularly in the Great Plains and Southern California, and also another major area across Pakistan and northern India. A lot of food for much of the world is being grown in those places, and we're using the water up. Not a good situation. Besides our running out, more water pumped out of the ground. Well, that groundwater also is what's going to be supplying the springs and coming up into the bottom of rivers, things like that. You've probably noticed creeks don't just go dry when it stops raining. Where does that water come from? It's the water that's soaked down into the ground and moves more slowly because it's going through all the little tiny holes and crevices between bits of dirt and rocks rather than just straight across the surface. So the supply of our stream between rain events is coming from the groundwater. Less groundwater, our stream is more likely to run dry, which is obviously bad news for whatever lives in them. Another thing on using up water in one area doesn't have to be as liquid water. Living things are mostly water. If we are growing living things in one place and then shipping them someplace else, a lot of that stuff we're shipping away is water. And so, for example, in drier parts of the world, say Southern California, or in the Near East, Israel, someplace like that, if you're growing lots of plants and then shipping that elsewhere, or cows shipping the meat, maybe flowers, whatever that agricultural produce is, a lot of that's water, which you're shipping away. And you're already low on water. Long term, that's not a good thing.